All right, bonus episode here. Friday bonus episode
Love
in the
it.
middle of the off season. How about that? We're providing for our fans and listeners
We're
like
just
there's no
bored,
tomorrow.
so we might as
We're
well
just
record.
so it might as well. Yeah, these are just the musings of our daily
Yeah.
our daily lives right now, just getting it out there onto the airwaves, so to speak. But yeah, today discussing top 10. Really, it's about top 14. I think we put a little bit,
We got some honorable
mentions on
mentions.
the list. Yeah. But the top 10 head coach quarterback combos, much different discussion than what we've had, the last couple weeks with our different rankings and tiers of head coaches and quarterbacks. This is now combining the two and saying, hey, this is a package deal. Who do you want and who do you like the best? So this will be an interesting one. It was definitely hard to figure out who to leave off and who to put in there, Mark, because we were talking right before we went on
Yeah.
air here that for me, it was a matter of, okay, in some cases I have an above average or even great head coach, but what I would consider maybe a below average or just kind of average quarterback.
Yeah.
Would I put a duo of two above average head coach and quarterback above that group, even though one of them has a better head coach or a better quarterback? So, that one was interesting. I kind of split it down the middle when it came to that, and just said, what package would I like better if I was starting a team right now? So, yeah, an interesting one. What were your takeaways in making this list?
My biggest thing was I kept having to remind myself, remove everything else. Forget about the team's weapons. Forget about the team's recent history. Like wins, certainly. Like I took like wins into account. Like overall, I feel like this coach and quarterback maybe have been together a while and they win a lot. Like that matters. But overall, I just try to figure out, okay, if I'm starting a franchise and I get this package deal, which package deal do I like more? And that I think is where you're going to see maybe at the later part of my top 10, where I just feel like even though I may like a quarterback a lot more than the quarterback in a package deal, that group works together, or they, you get that advantage of they know each other, they work well, and they've had success. So it's tough. There's going to be some fan bases who are like, are you kidding me? I already could tell in my honorable mentions, I got like 5 fan bases who are going to be like, you're an idiot. How would you take them over them? And so I'm ready for that. I'll bring the smoke.
Yeah, for sure. I would say there's at least 2, maybe 3 head coach quarterback combos on my top 10 that I think are going to get some questions as to either where they're at in the list or that they're even on the list in general. So, it'll be telling, how by the end of this list, kind of what is valued more. And that's what makes it a kind of a fun grouping to put together. It's one thing when you're comparing contemporaries against contemporaries, head coaches or quarterbacks, but to put them together as like a package deal, that's interesting. So let's get to it. Our head coach quarterback combos going into the 2024 NFL season.
It's a good-looking combo meal.
We all love a good combo, and look, we're talking about combos number 1 through combo number 10. So, what's your go-to, people? Tell us on social media or in the comments wherever you may be watching or listening. But yeah, we'll dive right into combo number 1. It's always it's a classic. It's a go-to. It's number 1 on the menu for a reason.
It's a Big Mac with large fries and large Coke.
And it just so happens to be the head coach's favorite combo as well. It's got to be Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. I think you're agreeing with that.
Yeah, no disagreement there. The rest of the list is there where it gets interesting. They're the easiest 2. We did it with the quarterback one. We did it with the coach one. They're the easiest 2 to say right now. They're top dogs. They're phenomenal. I really even think there's a pretty sizable gap between 1 and 2. There's a bigger gap between 1 and 2 than any other 2 numbers to me for the rest of the list. The rest of the list is the gaps between, 7 and 8 or 9 and 10 or whatever it is, even 2 and 3, I feel like is smaller than the gap between 1 and 2. that's just a testament to how great both those guys are and how great they are together right now.
Absolutely. Yeah, they are the bona fide number one across the board. No question there. So we'll move on to number two. And before we get to number two, I will say, like, are you optimistic? Do you think that we will even have the same from 2 through 10? I don't know if we'll have a same.
I don't know.
One of them,
we'll see. You and I surprise each other a lot. We surprise each other a lot. A lot of times we do think about things the same way, but this is one of those things where there's so many variables and we have our preferences to where it can go either way. So I'm happy to go first with my second.
Okay.
And it's something I stand by. I think it's a clear number two, and it is Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson. 2 MVPs in the last 4 years. They just were the number one seed in the AFC. They just, had home field advantage. They're in a really tough division, and yet when Lamar is healthy, him and Harbaugh have been extremely good together. No one has won more in the Mahomes era than Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson, like combined together as another duo, besides maybe Allen and McDermott. But Allen and McDermott haven't broken through either. And when it comes down to that, I like Harbaugh so much more than I like McDermott, even though I do traditionally have Allen slightly ahead of Lamar Jackson. So I think they're a clear number two for me. If they're not your number two, sell me on. Who is your number two?
They're not my number two.
Okay.
So we'll deviate right off the bat here. But they were certainly in consideration. But for me, it goes to the duo that have hoisted the trophy together in recent years, and that's McVay and Stafford.
Okay.
I put Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford here at number two because I consider Sean McVay to be a top 3 head coach in the league. He might be my second favorite overall after Andy Reid. And Matthew Stafford surprised me. I mean, last year I thought he was going to fall off because I was really concerned about the elbow and his shoulder and everything. And I just didn't think that, it was going to be salvageable. But he came back and had a really, really solid year. They haven't won overall as much, I think, as Harbaugh and Jackson together have, but they've hoisted the trophy together. They've done it. And I still consider Stafford maybe like a top 12 NFL quarterback, maybe even a little bit higher.
Higher than that. He's top 10 for me, probably maybe top 8 even.
Okay, yeah. So he's definitely in the upper echelon. Yeah. And then McVay being number 2 or something, that just kind of elevated it. Jackson is a better quarterback, but I think I would take McVay over Harbaugh. And so that's kind of what, ended that debate for me. And that's what put McVay.
You don't have to sell me hard because they're my number 3. McVay and Stafford is 3 for me. And the thing I dinged them on is Stafford's overall health right now, even though we haven't heard anything out of camp, right? This time last year
he's older and he's just he's slower and all of that.
Yeah. This time last year we were hearing about the elbow and we're like, what is this? Like, what are we going to be dealing, or like 2 years ago it was the elbow or whatever it was. And then last year they had a really good year. Remember, they made the second round or the first round of the playoffs, lost in the first round at Detroit, that really emotional game. But they put up a good fight, and this is a young defense that's getting better. So overall, I'm high on the Rams this year. I love Stafford. I love McVay. I agree. McVay is a top 3 coach in the league for me. Stafford, if I went through for just this year, he's probably going to come in around 7 or 8, 6, 7, 8, somewhere in that realm for me as the quarterback I'd want this year going into it for a 1-year run. I'm very, very high on them. I just give Harbaugh and Jackson the slight edge because I think they're both more in the prime. Harbaugh is in maybe the end of his prime as a coach, but Lamar is a 2-time MVP with Harbaugh. Like, they work together. They have a real simpatico, even though they haven't broken through.
Very well.
I'm already preparing myself historically for fighting these battles 20 years down the line to argue that Lamar and Josh Allen and Joe Burrow, even though they don't have a ring or maybe rings, it's because they played in the Patrick Mahomes era. Like, Stafford got really lucky that Joe Burrow knocked off Mahomes that 1 year, or else would Stafford have that ring? We just don't know. It's too hard to say. That Chiefs collapse in the back end. They still got it. They got the hardware and they deserve it. It's a really close race for me, but they're going to fall into 3 just because of the age. And also Sean McVay, let's be honest, he was also a year ago talking about, I might retire. ITV, Like, I don't know if it's going to be, he did sign the contract. He's locked in, but they're both a little wishy-washy in that regard versus Harbaugh and Lamar. I feel more confident in going into this year that as long as Lamar is healthy, they're simpatico. They have a good relationship and they're ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, Lamar, Allen, Herbert, these guys, someone is going to have to break through and win a title to make that conversation even more interesting in, like you were saying, 15, 20 years down the road. Because to me, it'll be very much like which of these guys is Phillip Rivers and which of them is Big Ben or Peyton Manning?
Because Big Ben and Peyton got rings.
But they got the rings. Even Joe Flacco did, but that wasn't, that was a total one-off. So
and then now we look at Russell Wilson was a one-off in the Brady era as well.
Right. Yeah. So it's, I mean, who has to go through Mahomes and who will do it and pull it off and who just can't overcome it.
That's a great
down
point.
The line. So that will be very interesting because Phillip Rivers is, an excellent quarterback. And unfortunately it might be the Charger and Justin Herbert. Hopefully it doesn't come down to that because I think we're both fans of Harbaugh and Herbert there. All right, number 3 for me is Harbaugh and Jackson. So we're not too different on that. And I don't have much more to say than what's already been said. They are a great duo. I would agree that they complement each other very well. And I think Harbaugh's great at letting their guys be who they are and supporting them. I mean, he could have very, very well, stuck to his guns with his staffing and said, we're not going to try and reinvent this offense. The Todd Monken, experiment, the Greg Roman deal, like, he's been showing that he's willing to give Lamar what Lamar needs to flourish, and then he's got the rest. He's the special teams guy and the defensive guy and the working with the GM to build a roster. He's really good at all of that. So yeah, number 3 pairing for me. Number 4, maybe the quarterback's doing a lot of heavy lifting here, but it's McDermott and Allen. I do like Sean McDermott overall as a head coach. But Josh Allen is clearly the guy that's carrying the water for this duo in terms of where this list shows up, because Josh Allen might be the number 3, I would say, quarterback, maybe even 2 in the NFL behind Patrick Mahomes. And McDermott, might be a number 8 head coach or somewhere in that listing for me. But yeah, the pairing together is really good because McDermott, historically has had really good defenses. The last couple of years, that hasn't been the case, and that's what's been the knock for him. But he's a really good defensive head coach. Seems to be a guy that most of the players really like playing for. And then Allen, he doesn't need any endorsement. He is who he is, a fantastic athlete and quarterback in this league. So, putting a top 8 head coach and a top 2 to 3 quarterback together makes for a number 4 combo, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so. I was saying before we started recording, to me, the 4, 5, and 6 slot are all 3. Like, I'm not going to fight you on how you want to order it. I'm going to go 4 with Joe Burrow and Zach Taylor because they have broken through. So I know for a fact that Joe Burrow and Zach Taylor, if given the right surroundings, even on the road at Arrowhead, can break through. So they earn that right to me. I would agree that Taylor and McDermott are about the same ranking around the head coaching slot. I might put Taylor slightly ahead of McDermott because he's an offensive guy, and that I think just matters more in the modern league. I would also agree that I think that Josh Allen would be my number 2 quarterback. Joe Burrow would be my number 3 quarterback, but I think it's really, really, really close. So I think that's kind of splitting hairs. So to me, the thing that was more important was that Joe and Zach Taylor had broken through. At 5, I go Allen and McDermott. So again, I'm not far off on you with Allen McDermott. I love them a ton. And this is, to me, again, more of Allen carrying the water in this duo than McDermott. I don't know how much longer McDermott's leash will be if he cannot break through. It's one thing when you lose to the Chiefs like they did. But when you lose to the Bengals and get embarrassed 2 years ago and things like that, that's where McDermott's job really needs to be a question and on the line. You can lose in the playoffs to anyone that as long as it's the Kansas City Chiefs. Like, that's the team you can lose to. you can't lose to anyone else. If you're McDermott, you want to keep your job, in my opinion. You've got to beat everyone who's not the Kansas City Chiefs. And if you can do that, you'll keep your job. Like, you'll keep your job. I would not fire McDermott if they get to the AFC Championship game against Kansas City again and he loses. Like, he's putting you in unless it's like so obvious that he made a horrible decision or he made a horrible defensive call or whatever, and his fingerprints were on the loss. Otherwise, I'd give him the benefit of the doubt of being like, you're just being beat by a generational all-time coach and quarterback combo. So I have them at 5.
Yeah, no, I think that's totally fair. Burrow and Taylor are right there at 5 for me. So we're just jagged basically right
stacking.
Now. We're fairly in lockstep for the most part. We haven't talked yet, and I'm sure we will more as we get into the training camp and preseason era. But this is a huge year for Joe Burrow. Like, this is a very important year.
Yeah.
He, like, from a being healthy standpoint, from a keeping the boat afloat type of deal, because look, I mean, they very well may be losing T. Higgins. Who knows what's going to happen with Jamar Chase? I'm confident that they'll end up getting a deal done with him. And, you know, they've got young players across the offensive line and in the running back room now. Like, this could be almost taking a dip into Burrow needing to literally carry all of the weight like it was his rookie year.
Yeah.
And that could be an issue. So he has to stay healthy. This team needs to get back into the playoffs. You know, last year they did well with Browning, but yeah, I don't know. Like, obviously the pairing of Taylor and Burrow is so good, and Burrow's a phenomenal quarterback, top 5 in this league. Taylor, like we talked about, probably top 8-ish, somewhere in there too. So he's got to be, they're high up in this ranking for a reason, but this is one where I could see it starting to fall apart quickly. And I hope that's not the case, because despite being a Steelers fan, do root for Joe Burrow, because he's an easy guy to root for, and he's really talented. Dan,
I will say, I think it's hard, because I could argue there's just as equal amount of pressure on Tua and McDaniels, equal amount of pressure on Harbaugh and Lamar, equal amount of pressure on Allen and McDermott for Rodgers and Saleh. Like, anyone in the AFC who has pressure on them, it feels like it's an incredible amount of pressure because of how good the Chiefs are. The difference is, I agree with you, they have a slight amount more pressure, or it's like a little bit extra of a bigger year amped up, because Burrow now has to prove he's not just an injury-prone guy, because really his career so far has been injured, healthy, injured, healthy, injured. So we need to get back to, like, now it's got to be a healthy year. It's got to be a healthy year, because he hasn't had 2 injured years back to back. So he's got to at least keep that going. And then hopefully it turns into a stretch where it's 2 or 3 years in a row where he's healthy. And
he hasn't had a training camp. He hasn't had one in his NFL career.
And that's the great thing, is he has one now. This is one he actually has, and the wrist has been healed, and he's 100% go. So it was a weird injury last year. I mean, that whole game, remember, surrounding it, the gambling drama. Very excited for the Bengals this year. I'm really excited. I think as long as they get Higgins and Chase eventually suited up for game 1, then I'm all on board with the Bengals and thinking they're going to have a big year. I really do believe that.
All right, let's hear number 6.
6 is where I think it gets interesting. But again, I think this makes the most sense. And I do believe that they're in the right spot at 6, and that's Harbaugh and Herbert. Herbert is the proven NFL commodity. Harbaugh, it's been a decade, but he's had incredible success. I could see them being higher. My original ranking for them was actually at 4. And then I said, take a chill pill. Let's walk this thing back. Burrow and Allen are better than Herbert. And even though I love Harbaugh, and I probably would rather have Harbaugh than McDermott or Taylor today in my franchise, that's a lot of hoping that he regains what he is. I think they fall in the right spot at 6 as a giant question mark. But we know with both guys, the talent is outstanding. I think they're both top 6 talent coach and quarterback in the NFL right now. So that's where I have him. I reworked and I said to myself, take a chill pill. Let's put him at 6. I'm interested to see if you feel the same way.
Yeah, that's a bit high for me, and it's because of the question marks and because, Herbert did struggle a bit last year. I mean, he hasn't had much consistency. It's not Justin Herbert's fault, and I think we both agree he's super talented and very good.
He's on head coach number 3, by the way, Justin Herbert.
Yeah. I mean,
think about
honestly,
that.
Herbert and Trevor Lawrence are very similar in many ways to me, not just because of stature, because of how they play. They've had dysfunctional teams. They've had head coaches that are seemingly completely lost early in their career. And they display this extreme talent that can't be mistaken. Now, Herbert has overcome it a bit more than Trevor, which is why Herbert is a little bit higher. But the question marks for Harbaugh, I know we've talked about how his floor is so high, and we can expect him to do well just because of what he's shown in the past. But I think I still want to see these two together, because what if Harbaugh's approach is so much more run heavy to where he's not like Herbert's putting up extremely consistent and efficient numbers, but he is not putting up the 4,800 yard, 40 touchdown seasons. Which
we
is what
know he's capable of that. And I think in the end, I believe if that's the truth, what you're saying, in the end, it's going to lead to more wins. I really think it will.
Yes.
So
they will have success.
In the end, if they're in the AFC title game because of that, I think we'll both think more highly even of Herbert too, to say, hey, he's putting aside the arm talent to say, this is what's going to win me games, doing what's best for the team. And there will be moments where Justin Herbert wins games for the Chargers, no matter how much they commit to the run. So who do you have at 6?
So 6 for me, and this was the first in this list that I went with. I went really heavy in what the package offers me. And that's Dan Campbell and Jared Goff.
Okay.
For me, they're two extremely solid, slightly above average at what they do. And I think the pairing is just perfect. I mean, I couldn't think of a better head coach for Jared Goff, and I can't really think of a better quarterback in the league to be Dan Campbell's quarterback than Jared Goff. Goff does exactly, they're just so in sync. Goff does exactly what's being asked. He understands the system. He understands what leadership is being asked of him. And Campbell knows how to get absolutely the most juice out of this squeeze for a quarterback who was, for a short period there, considered to be, a throwaway, and saying, oh, look, McVay and the Rams, they're giving up on Goff even after he took him to the Super Bowl. He clearly, doesn't have what it takes to be a franchise quarterback. And he's done that with the Lions. I just think the pairing is so strong that elevates them over maybe other great quarterbacks or other great head coaches that come up in this
here we go again.
But I don't think I can drop them much further than 6 or 7 or 8 might be the floor for them.
Here we go again. They're at 7 for me, Goff and Campbell. So it's this. So again, I valued I fell in love with the talent of Harbaugh and Herbert to put them slightly ahead. But I'm 100% with you. I have nothing else to add to that. They are phenomenal for each other, and they are 2 B pluses. And when they are together, you could put them in any hardworking American city, Chicago, Cincinnati, Detroit, Cleveland, and they're gonna be a home run. Like, they're gonna be a home run that the fan base will love and support. And so they have a home in Detroit, and Detroit's lucky to have them for sure. I think they're the favorites to win the NFC as of right now. In my opinion, they are this morning. So I have them at 7. Who do you have at 7?
Team got better. 7 for me. One of the hardest duo to place, in my opinion, Shanahan and Purdy.
Okay.
And that it's, Purdy is I would say average to slightly above average quarterback, maybe. Definitely executes what's being asked of him. So if you said who's the best coach that Purdy could have gotten, Kyle Shanahan's probably on that short list. Maybe Sean McVay.
It's the only list. And McDaniels, maybe. That's the list.
Yeah. No, there's really not much there. And for Shanahan is so good. Like, Shanahan for me might be the third best coach or fourth best coach in the NFL. I've elevated McVay a little bit since even last year. But so Shanahan's, the cream of the crop, and in Purdy, obviously, is much further down. But Shanahan's what puts them at 7 here on this list. If it wasn't for Shanahan, and Shanahan had, 3/4 of the success he's had, they may not be even in the top 10, because I don't know. I feel like a lot of people have talked about trying to talk up Purdy to be this thing that I don't think was ever fair, or that he ever was. And I don't think it's unfair to say, like, Purdy's still a really solid quarterback. He's just not a superstar, and that's okay. Like, he's had so much success, and they got to a Super Bowl. Like, it's okay. It's okay to acknowledge that he is what he is. Shanahan's amazing, and they'll do really well together as long as they're pairing. So yeah, they come in at 7 for me, just because of Shanahan mainly.
Well, I'll let me give you a guess. Who's the number 8 for me?
It's gonna be Shanahan and Purdy. Let's go.
It's So for me, I'm with you 100%. Shanahan is my number 2 coach in the NFL, and then it would go Sean McVay 3. So Reed, Shanahan, McVay. So this is a number 2 coach, and probably talent-wise, like if I was doing 1 through 32 starters, Purdy falls somewhere around 15, 16. So I made him meet in the middle at 8. Like, you know what I mean? Like, let's just get in the middle there. And I do think, again, if you were to tell me right now, every roster's clear, every free agent, every coach, every player's a free agent, and you told me, Mark, they just did a draft, and you got Shanahan, and he's bringing Purdy with him, I'd be like, let's go. That guarantees me 9 wins, probably, if everyone stays healthy, and an absolute identity to my team. Do I then also worry, like, bleep, I better be loaded with wide receivers and weapons and an insane offensive line? Yeah, that's where you get worried, but we're not ranking that. This isn't me ranking the Niners as the 8th best team in the league. This is me saying, of the coach-quarterback combos, if you could pick them, they are probably about the 8th, and a lot of that is because of the coach, not the quarterback. Similarly to the Allen being 5 with McDermott. That's more about the quarterback than it is the coach. So if Shanahan, if we were just doing coaching rankings, this is a slight to Shanahan. If we were just doing quarterback rankings, this is a huge get for Brock Purdy. So they help each other. Well, Shanahan helps Brock.
Shanahan helps Purdy. Yeah. Elevates him to his level.
Yeah.
All right. Harbaugh and Herbert come to me here at 8. So I didn't drop too far, but 2 spots further than where you had them. And as I mentioned, it was the question marks, but I actually considered this a nice ranking for Harbaugh.
We've never seen them together. Yeah, we've never seen them together.
So
it's projected.
The 2 that I have at 9 and 10, maybe those fan bases would be a little upset that I'm putting the question marks of a Harbaugh Herbert ahead of him. But, I do think that Harbaugh brings a level of talent with him that most first-time head coaches with their new regime and stuff don't bring. There's a lot of question marks always. Like Mike McDaniel was one of those guys that was really talented and brought it with. So, yeah, Harbaugh has enough star power there to where they get, a benefit of the doubt and put him in the top 10.
And let's be honest, Herbert also is a huge factor in this. The dude is an ungodly talent. He is an ungodly talent who is most likely, if he's not in your top 6 or 7 quarterbacks, you're a hater. Like, that's just it. You're a hater. Right. So I think it's fair. I think they belong in the top 10. I have them a little higher. You have them a little lower. That's our biggest kind of disagreement at this point. Number 9 for me is one that, this is where it gets interesting. To me, in the 9 and 10 spot, there was 5 options. I had 5 options to choose from. And I'm going to go based off recency bias, recent success, but also projecting a little bit just based on, again, overall, I like this. This is, to me, a B coach and a B quarterback. And so I like that more than maybe an A coach with a C quarterback. Makes sense?
Yeah. Yep.
So I'm
absolutely.
going B coach.
I know who this is.
I'm going B coach, B quarterback, LaFleur and Love. I'm going LaFleur and Love at number 9. And I will just say, what we saw from them during that playoff run, what they did in Dallas and what they did in San Francisco until that final drive where a young quarterback in Love made a really bad read and a bad decision. And if he didn't throw that pick, you had all the belief that they were going to march right down and score, and that they could have won that game. I think that the trajectory and the arrows pointed way up for them. And I hate to say it, and it makes me sick, but I think they being in the top 10, if you have someone else, I'm not going to fight for them, but I'm going to say my logic says B and B with an arrow pointed up to where they could both be A-, I think at their peak is good. I actually think maybe I'm being a little disrespectful to LaFleur. He made it to 3 straight NFC title games with Aaron Rodgers, and then his first year without Aaron Rodgers, won a playoff game on the road at Dallas and came within a play of winning on the road in San Francisco. Yeah. So maybe he is already an A- or at least a B+. So
yeah, but he definitely still has some question marks.
He's proven that he can do it with 2 different guys. The thing that concerns me is the slow start they got off to last year. You had all that time to prepare with Love, that it was such an ugly, slow start. And now they have all the footage on these two together. Maybe defensive coordinators will adjust on how they play them. But I think they're warranted at number 9. What say you?
Yeah, so I had LaFleur and Love at 10.
Okay.
So we were just off once again. So we didn't have any of the same through our top 10. For 9, I had similar reasonings for this group, much younger even. And so it's recent success and projecting success. Love was what dropped LaFleur and Love down to 10 and elevated DeMeco Ryans.
I have them at 10. I have them at 10.
Number 9 for me. Very nice.
We said before we started recording, we may have completely different lists, and we have the same 10 on all, but just this staggered order. We do think alike. This is why we like doing the show. We rarely just like vehemently disagree on things. That's hilarious.
Yeah, we're not going to be on any like first take.
No,
anytime.
I love Stroud. I love Stroud and DeMeco. I think the thing about that scared me is the sophomore slump. You could argue sophomore slump with Love and LaFleur, but I think it's more legitimately real for the fact that DeMeco had 1 year and LaFleur now I've seen 3 NFC title games and a stretch. So yeah, I mean, it's
I could be wrong. I envision CJ. Even if they're in the same B, like to me right now, Jordan Love's like B-, and CJ Stroud's a B+ bordering on an A- already.
Yeah.
And so for me, that difference is what made the difference here because LaFleur is a better, more proven coach currently. DeMeco Ryans maybe can get there. But if it was just about Ryans, LaFleur would have him beat out. But CJ, being almost a full letter grade better than Love, in my estimation at this point, is what got him into 9 over 10. But they're very, very close. Like,
where would you go if we had to continue the list? We can rifle through these quickly here now.
Yes, where would 11 for me was Doug Peterson, Trevor Lawrence. Came in at 11 for me.
I had them at number 12.
Okay.
So at 11, I had Sirianni and Hurts. And again, that's to me, Jalen Hurts is a true, in my opinion, deserved top 10 quarterback who's not in this list because I now have such questions about Nick Sirianni, like giant questions about Nick Sirianni. At 12 is Lawrence and Peterson. Who did you have at 12?
At 12, I had Jonathan Gannon and Kyler Murray, and this is all because of Kyler Murray.
Kyler.
Almost all because of Kyler Murray. But to Gannon's credit, they didn't bottom out last year, and they didn't waver, and they fought.
Yeah.
Like they were one of those grittier teams. Josh Dobbs, and they battled and they got it done. So I got to give them credit.
We should have done our list. Should have been 11 through 20 because they weren't on my radar at all.
Really? Oh, okay. All right.
And now that you say it, like I like Kyler, but again, Kyler when he came back last year wasn't the Kyler leading the Cardinals to the playoffs 2 years ago.
Yeah,
he was fine.
I mean, the more I think about it, I would put Sirianni and Hurts at 12 ahead of them because I had Sirianni Hurts after them. And like, just now that I'm like vocalizing it,
like,
they deserve to be higher up because they made it to a Super Bowl and they,
Hurts wasn't great last year, but he was still very solid. And and they were coming off a Super Bowl hangover in which Hurts, besides the fumble, outplayed Mahomes in that Super Bowl. Now, he had Shane Steichen. If you're telling me you got Hurts and Steichen, that's a top 10, no doubt, no brainer.
Right.
It's the Sirianni thing that worries me. Now, I also then said I had McDaniels and Tua at 13 because I think, again, I got a B+ coach and a C+ quarterback. And then I had Rodgers and Saleh 14, Dak and McCarthy 15. So Rodgers, again, is just kind of hoping for, and we talked about it the other day, Saleh, I don't think gets enough credit for being a guy who really is a solid NFL head coach. He's got a presence to him. He handles it. So that's where my brain was thinking. Those would be kind of the next guys out. I think Eagles fans have a right to be a little miffed at my list. I think Dolphins fans and Jags fans also have a slight right to be miffed at my list. Cowboys fans, of course, are going to be upset. They're going to be like, you idiot. Dak and McCarthy have won 12 games, 3 straight years. And they have. But they have nothing else to show for it. And individually on their own, I think they're both about the 12th best coach and the 12th best quarterback. So, it's like, what do I do with that? It just doesn't feel like a top 10 pairing.
Yeah. No, I think that's absolutely fair. I made one slight adjustment here to my 14 and 15 because I'll be honest, McDaniel and Tua slipped my mind.
They slipped my mind at first too.
Yeah, they've got to be there at 14, so I'll put them there at 14. And at 15, perhaps the most controversial one, I put Mike Tomlin and Russell Wilson because over Dak and McCarthy.
Because Tomlin is just, I get it.
Yeah. It really, like, if again, I was thinking, especially as it got later on down the list and it required more thought. I was, if we were starting from scratch and they said, you got to pick a package, I would pick Tomlin and Russell Wilson to like start my team with versus a Robert Saleh, Aaron Rodgers, or versus a McCarthy and Dak. Personally,
I would agree if you told me I get Tomlin and Justin Fields.
Okay. Yeah,
I am so done. Hey, I'm so done projecting. I'm so done projecting Russell Wilson right now. I have no idea. And we saw it last year. He was slightly above average efficiency. He didn't have a horrendous year. It ended poorly because Denver then knew they wanted to move off him. And then, the benching got ugly, but his numbers weren't terrible. They just nothing equated to wins or winning plays. And I worry now in a defensive culture with that in that city and the pressure of that schedule. I mean, they're in it's like Tomlin got screwed here. Tomlin's getting screwed in this list because Tomlin is absolutely a top 7-8 coach in the NFL. But when his quarterback might be below 15, somewhere between 15 and 21, 22, well, I mean, I struggled to find their spot. And if you told me that I could have Tua and McDaniels, I would take them over Tomlin and Russ. Rodgers and Saleh is tough because both of them feel similarly, only Tomlin is much better than Saleh. So Rodgers, you don't know what you're going to get either.
Tomlin's the top 5, I would say, still head coach in the league. Like it would go like Reed, Harbaugh, Reed, McVay, Shanahan, Harbaugh,
Reed, McVay,
Tomlin,
Shanahan, Reed, Shanahan, McVay, Harbaugh. Yeah.
Right.
Tomlin, Reed, Shanahan, McVay, Harbaugh. 4. The discussion starts at 5, and I think there's names to throw in there, and I think Tomlin is absolutely in that discussion.
Yep.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
Well, that was fun. That was cool. We had a very similar list. We didn't have any of the same outside of number 1, but we had all the whole same top 10.
But again, I think, and maybe it's because we both think the same way. I'm glad, like in the end, if you would have said to me, if you were trying to force Salah and Rodgers or something like number 8, I'd be like, well, you're just nuts. I'm not even arguing with you.
Yeah.
And that would be like we'd be doing first take mumbo jumbo. You know what I mean? And having to deal with, or like, what is Greeny show? Get Up. Where I just got to deal with Jets BS all day, every day. Yeah. I will say, I think this list will be really interesting to look at in a year from now, trying to see what this looks like in a year from now. Because Harbaugh and Herbert are total wild card. They could move up as high as all the way to number 2, depending on how it goes. Or if it's a really ugly year in their first year, what faith do you have that they could return to form? And for, Peterson and Lawrence, we've already talked about, they absolutely could skyrocket back up this list if they win that division and they win a playoff game. So it's there's a lot of movers and shakers on the list possibly. And if Shanahan finally does win a Super Bowl and he does it with Purdy, how could you argue they're not a top 3 coach quarterback combo?
Absolutely.
Because they've got the ring, they'd have the ring to show for it. Same with Goff. Same with Goff and Campbell. If they are able to break through and win a Super Bowl this year, how could you argue they're not in the top 2-3? So it's this is going to be fun thing to maybe make as a yearly mid-June type of show for us.
A little anecdote before we close here, not football related, but the BMW charity pro-am happens in town every year. So Grace and I are going to go and check that out tomorrow. Brian Baumgartner, Kevin from The Office, always plays in it. Larry the Cable Guy. But they've got a lot of NFL dudes, so I guess it is NFL related. Actually, Danny Woodhead is playing this year.
He's like an amateur. No, Danny Woodhead almost can make the tour from what I hear.
Really good, right?
Yeah.
Seth Curry is playing. Ryan Leaf is playing.
Oh, nice.
So I'm hoping they have to make the cut with their respective, because they get paired up with the pros, right?
Yeah.
And then they have to make the cut, and then they'll play on Saturday as well. So hopefully, one of those guys makes it to Saturday so I can see them out in the course. But something funny I saw, it's covered. The Golf Channel and sends out their NBC reporters to cover the tournament and stuff like that. And I saw Vince Young is playing. At the tournament
I saw this video.
Right?
I saw this video.
The video of, and oh gosh, like the fact that the woman
talking to
so
Vince
much
Young.
time asking the question too, and the whole time she's not talking to Vince Young, but the broadcasters are talking about, hey, we've got Vince Young here, participating, NCAA legend, all of this stuff, and let's toss it. And they toss it to their reporter, and she's walking the course with not Vince Young. It's just a tall, big black man wearing Citadel gear, because he's the head coach of the Citadel football team, which is down south here in South Carolina. And that poor reporter, she spent probably 20 seconds asking the question, kind of giving him all of his flowers about how, man, you were such an NCAA legend, won a Rose Bowl, won a national championship,
it's so bad.
NFL career. And then he
just
goes, I'm sorry, I gotta tell you, I'm not Vince Young. I was like, oh man, that's just brutal. But yeah, I just thought that was funny. But maybe good. I'll get to see Vince Young out on the course this year.
Go see Vince Young, Longhorn legend.
Yeah. Ken Griffey was there 2 years ago. I got to talk to him briefly.
Very cool.
It wasn't a very pleasant experience, I'll say that much. He didn't seem happy to be there at all. I was like, dude, it's a charity.
No, Junior doesn't. Junior, he takes
no. But I'll tell you, he probably drives at about 420 yards. So
bomber.
Yes, absolutely. All right, that'll do it for us here on the show. Be sure to check us out on YouTube and social media at FB Lounge Pod. As always, please support us and the rest of the For Frequency's Sake podcast network at ForFantasySakeQC.com. We'll see you soon.